I am the presence of God. I am his eye.
By the presence of God that was so enormous. There's a man called Charles Finney. When Charles Finney is going to a place for a program, a man goes ahead of him. They call him Father Nash. Father Nash will go for 1 week and check into a hotel and be praying and taking authority over the powers of the territory of that location. Charles Finney doesn't carry billboard or posters. No. All Charles Finney does is to walk into a factory. As people see him, they fall on their faces and start crying that they are sinners. We pack all of them as they are falling, like we pack all of them into the hall. They walk into the hall in their own dress, go to another place. People are crying and crying as he turns to go. He won't see anything. He packs all of them. After visiting 5 locations, the hall is filled up. Program has begun. He was a poster. He was a mobile billboard. By the presence of God that was so enormous.
Everyone can come into the house of God. The house of God is a church location. But the presence of God is an encounter. Everyone can come into the house of God. But not everyone that comes into the house of God can dwell in the presence of God. Coming into the house of God can be by your physical preparation and attempt. But to dwell in the presence of God is by your spiritual decision. When you then say, I cannot be in this house of God and not encounter the God of the house. That is the encounter that awaits.
The same presence we feel when we gather live here. We should be able to feel that same presence in our homes all across the world. The presence of God. 1 Kings chapter 17 verse 1. Elijah was the man who said, before God whom I stand. So he defined his position. He defined his address. Before God whom I stand. Before God whom I stand. If you are looking for me, locate me in the presence of God. That was Elijah. It was not before God whom I visited. It was not before God whom I'm trying to hang around. It's before God whom I stand. It is present continuous tense. I stood there, I am standing there, I will stand there before God whom I stand. The presence of God is my abode, is my location. And what was the outcome? You can overcome great distances by hanging around the presence of God. You can cover vast grounds. You cover vast grounds in a short time by hanging around the presence of God. You cover vast grounds in a short time. You overcome great distances in the physical, in your career, in your destiny, in ministry. You can do that by hanging around the presence of God.
Even though you cannot see God with your physical senses, his presence is eminent when there's joy in your spirit. Joy is the reaction, is the natural reaction that finds expression when you are in the environment of the presence of God.
I give you these 5 keys as irrefutable spiritual keys, that everyone who understands and activates these keys, you will experience the manifest presence of God in your life alongside the blessings in a fearful way. Key number 1, you want to secure the Shekinah of God in your life perpetually. The first key is passion for God. Passion for God. Matthew 22 and verse 37. Passion for God. You cannot secure that dimension of God's presence without passion for God. Thou shalt love the Lord your God with all thy heart. That means you can love him with part of it. Is that true? With all thy soul and with all thy mind. That means when it has to do with God, your heart, your mind, your brain, your soul, everything must plunge into it. Can I tell you, the presence of God is not a political issue. If you are not genuinely passionate, you can fake power, not presence.
First component of the kingdom that God established in the garden was his presence. When the presence of God is not in a place, the will of God can never find expression. So before God began the project of creation, he had to bring his presence to overshadow the visible realm. It was within the context of his presence that he began the project of creation. And the presence of God is not just an atmosphere. The presence of God is the expression of the dominion of God. The presence of God is the expression of the government of God that derives from the nature of God. When the presence of God comes to a place, the will of God will be compelled to find expression. Now, the reason you find chaos in spiritual operation is because the presence of God probably has been withdrawn. Now, you can be in the spirit and not in the presence. I need to say that quickly, because when the Holy Ghost is in you, you are in the spirit. But when you are in the presence, you are under the aura, the dread, the fear, and the government of God.
Every moment you come into the house of God and encounter a mercy. But no encounter can come to you. Heaven cannot do anything in your life until there is a conscious understanding of who you are. No one has ever had an encounter with God of heaven, and his life did not change. And it will not start with us. Our coming to God this season shall bring a massive encounter. Any encounter that affects every other area of your life and do not affect your spiritual life is a false encounter. For I wish above all things that you may prosper, even as thy soul. God is here. He wants that part. Even as thy soul prospers.
Oh.